I am Dr. Amy Mednick. I'm a medical doctor and I practice psychiatry in my own private practice on Madison Avenue. I went to undergrad at MIT, and that's where I first kind of developed a passion and awe for everything related to the brain. And then in medical school, I went to Albert Einstein in the Bronx, is where I decided to focus on psychiatry, where I felt that I could really kind of do the most good and make the most positive changes in people's lives. So I've been doing that for a long time, and then I decided to add transcranial magnetic stimulation to my practice early in 2019. TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation, is a non medication treatment option for depression. It's been around for a really long time. It's first started being used in research in 1985, and then it was FDA approved for the treatment of depression in 2008. And then in the more recent last few years, insurance companies have started to cover it as well. So it's starting to be used more broadly and to become more widely known. I decided to start offering it a little bit over a year ago. I'd been treating depression mostly with medication for over 10 years. And while medications can be so effective and can treat depression so well for some people, for a lot of people, they just don't quite work well enough, or they have side effects that just, are too much of a hit on quality of life. So I wanted to have something else to offer. I looked into the different kind of new modalities that are out there or in the pipeline for depression treatment. And ultimately, after a lot of research, I settled on TMS because it stood out as something that was very effective and also very safe, and also not likely to be extremely expensive for my patients, which was important to me. Yes, it is very effective. In the original clinical trials that were done to test out this treatment, they looked at the response rate, meaning a significant improvement in depression. They found that to be 67%. In my own practice data, we found a response rate of 77%. And then looking at remission, meaning complete clearing of depression, in the trials, that's 40%. In my practice, we've had 50%. In other words, half of my patients find that after TMS treatment, the depression has been cleared. I've yet to see anyone who had no benefit at all from TMS treatment, and I also have not seen anyone get any worse during TMS treatment. And it's important to compare all those numbers to medication treatment, the existing treatment for depression. Unfortunately, the remission rate for depression on medication is only 27%, and that number actually decreases with each subsequent medication trial, so that by the time someone is trying a fourth medication for depression, it's actually closer to 7% of people who are able to attain a remission from their depression. The treatment itself consists of targeted magnetic pulses that are delivered to the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is the area that is responsible for regulating mood. You're awake during the treatment, so there's no anesthesia or sedation, and you have a small MRI strength magnet applied to your head. It's about this big. It gets applied right here while you lay back in a recliner chair. And most people experience a tapping sensation right underneath where the magnet is placed, often described as feeling like a woodpecker pecking on your head, which granted is not the most comfortable feeling. And those nerves are not really used to stimulation in everyday life. Because of that, they kind of acclimate, and by the end of week one, most people are pretty used to the sensation. And then the stimulation itself is thought to activate the natural function of the brain's neurotransmitters, and to also strengthen underlying connections under the area where it's stimulating, connections that may be underfunctioning in depression. For many people, that translates into a complete clearing of their depression. And I've seen that many times, and it's just amazing to see and really exciting. For other people, it's a bit more subtle, and they may not feel that sort of eureka moment, but still feel able to cope better in a crisis, or to be able to find joy in things again in a way that was lacking during depression. Okay, let's talk logistics. The treatment itself each day can be as short as 18 minutes, as long as 30 minutes. We find out what your particular duration is going to be at your first session when we sort of map out treatment and find out what the amount of energy is required to activate your particular neurons. And then that kind of determines how long each treatment is going to be for you. TMS has been proven to work after 36 treatments. So that's what we do. That means usually 4 to 6 treatments a week, ends up being about 6 weeks. And then at the end, we do a taper of 3 per week, and then 2 per week, and then 1 per week, rather than stopping suddenly. At my practice, we really value your time. So if you're going to try to, let's say, carve out some time during your lunch break, we will do everything we can to get you in and out as quickly as you need. But you are awake and alert, so there's no issue in going straight back to work after treatment if that's what you choose to do. No, it's not going to change your brain. It's going to stimulate your brain to be able to change itself, something that we call neuroplasticity. What that's going to mean is kind of making it so that things work better for you. So things like therapy, taking a walk, doing yoga, things that maybe on their own can't quite clear a true major depressive episode, they start to become more effective and kind of allow your brain to start to pull you up out of that deep pit that depression can put you into. No, this is not electroconvulsive therapy or ECT. ECT, although it's a really effective treatment for depression, it involves inducing a seizure in your brain. In TMS, on the other hand, the goal is to deliver a non-convulsive amount of energy to avoid causing a seizure. What that means is that there are no memory loss issues in TMS, and no anesthesia is required for TMS. Unlike ECT, that means that there's no requirement for someone to bring you to and from treatment, and that you can just come in on your own and go back to your busy schedule when it's over. There are almost no side effects, which is really kind of a rarity in psychiatric treatments, and one of the reasons that I'm so excited about being able to offer TMS. There's an extremely low risk of seizures. So there were no seizures at all in the NeuroStar clinical trials, which is the machine that I use. And those trials involved 498 patients. The overall estimated risk of seizures is 0.003% of treatments. And we address this by controlling for all risk factors for seizures ahead of time, like, for example, making sure that you got enough sleep before each treatment and monitoring you closely throughout your treatment. It's true that there are a lot of treatments coming out and in development, things like ketamine or deep brain stimulation. And it's really an exciting time, especially when you think back to the time just last century that we really had no options for this terrible disease. So it's great that there are choices, but I know that too many choices can be overwhelming. So what I recommend is leaning on the bodies that have already done a lot of the research and the regulation for you. So that's why it's important that the FDA has already approved this treatment. The FDA approval process, especially for medical devices, is extremely rigorous. It has to be proven that a device is safe and that it's better than any of the options that are already out there. So you can be very reassured by choosing a treatment that you know has gone through that process already. The same goes for the fact that that all the major insurance companies cover it. Insurance companies really don't cover things until they've been really convinced that it's worth their money. And if you want to know more about that consideration process, you can even look it up. All the insurers have their TMS policies published online. You can read through pages and pages of all the scientific data that they have themselves compiled to justify this being a covered treatment. And if you're concerned because you haven't heard of it That's why I'm here. I'm trying to spread the word. A lot of people are, because it's just a really exciting, great option, and not enough people know about it. Where you decide to get your TMS treatment is very important. Um, the TMS machines themselves are really well standardized, so much so that technicians can administer the treatment without the doctor in the room after the initial mapping. What that means is wherever you go, you know that you will get the same basic treatment. And the difference then that you really need to look at is what the treatment environment looks like. Because research has shown that the state that you are in when you're receiving the treatment is really important to its efficacy. So it's important to choose a treatment provider who can work flexibly with your schedule, who prioritizes your comfort, and who keeps really open communication throughout the treatment course. All these things are very high priority at my practice. It's the reason that I only have one TMS machine and I'm the only doctor at my practice, so that my attention can be really fully focused on just one patient receiving treatment at a time. I'm not running a big center or like an assembly line type clinic or anything like that. It's just me. It's very personal. I also chose my technicians very carefully to be sure that we only have really intelligent, compassionate people whom I can trust to handle your treatment, communicate closely with me on all of the details. And my technicians and I have all been through the exact same comprehensive training on the use of the TMS machine. So, if you're looking for a more intimate, personalized kind of practice setting, then I would be the right one to choose. It's really for anyone with depression. It works so well with so few side effects that it's something that anyone suffering from this disease should consider. I've treated people who have been depressed for decades and tried every medicine under the sun, and I've treated people who are only a little bit into a first depressive episode of their life and just didn't really like taking medicine. As of now, insurance companies will only cover it if you've already tried a certain number of medications and either failed to improve or had too many side effects. But it's not usually too big of a hurdle, so we should definitely chat if you're at all interested, and we can figure out if it's right for you and how to get your insurance to cover it. It's definitely a complicated process, but me and my team have a lot of experience with it. We will provide you with a roadmap for what to expect, so you know ahead of time exactly what costs might come your way in terms of deductible and co-insurances, things like that. If your cost sharing is high or your insurance won't cover it for some reason, we also work with a great financing company who can offer a zero interest medical loan for about 12 to 15 months to help with the treatment costs. And we can walk you through that whole process as well.